Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome back to Event Tech Live 2021. All of a sudden, we're at the end of the week. We're on to our penultimate session already. Hope you've had a fantastic week so far. Hope you've had a nice little break there. You're nice and refreshed, ready to go for this session, though. So up next, we've got leveraging live streaming technology for engaging events. And my next guest to join us to deliver this session is Gage Vandentop from Hopin. Hello, how are you doing?
For having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Fantastic. Looking forward to hearing your session. So if you're ready to go, the floor is yours.
Fantastic. Oh, I'm on the wrong. Let me go back one. So yeah, my name's Gage Vandentop. I'm the co-founder and general manager of a live streaming tool called Streamyard. I've been involved in the streaming and events space for just over three years now. So super excited to chat with you all today and share with you some of the things I've learned about leveraging live streaming for engaging events. So before we jump into it, let's talk a bit about what live streaming even is and why you should live stream at all. So live stream and events are deeply interconnected. Essentially, live streams are just a simple type of event. Like if you're just going to do a live stream online, you're basically just doing the simplest form of an event. It's never going to be as compelling as and interesting as bringing people in person and forming those meaningful connections and those one-on-one experiences. But the important benefit that you do get out of a live stream, whether the live stream itself is an event or you're layering it on to an existing event that you do, is that you're able to form those meaningful connections at scale to reach many people that you wouldn't be able to if you were just doing an event in person. So for example, if you're just doing an event in person, maybe venues can only get so big. So rather than only being able to reach 1,000 people, you essentially amplify the reach of that particular event. First, or another thing we should quickly touch on is the overall state of the industry. I have some fun facts to share about live streaming. So one is LinkedIn Live videos actually get 7 times more reactions and 25 more comments than native LinkedIn videos, which part of that is because LinkedIn is preferentially selecting LinkedIn Live content to show to viewers, but they partially do that because they know that content is more exciting and more engaging. But that's an important stat that you could think about when you're doing your events, when you're selecting which channels you might want to use to actually decide when you're streaming out portions of your event. LinkedIn Live might be a great channel because of this additional reactions and comments that you're going to get on that content. Another stat is 82% of people actually prefer live video from brands rather than just static social posts. This fact is from livestream.com, and a huge reason for this is because of the trust that people are like. The world is so noisy right now. There's so many different signals and content that people are engaging with on a daily basis, and people really respect and trust when people are actually willing to show up live as a brand. And I believe that's why so many people actually prefer that live content versus the static social posts. Another cool fact I had was from StreamYard itself, our tool. There's actually been 17 million broadcasts just in the last year of people doing live online streams, live online events with StreamYard. And then live broadcasts actually account for 1 in 5 Facebook videos. So all of these things are great reasons for why you might want to consider leveraging live streaming for your next event. Like if you've just only been doing in-person events, things like this are great facts to back why you can really benefit from the increased reach of live streams. One thing I wanted to quickly touch on was actually how StreamYard as a company actually leveraged live streaming for our own growth and our own success. So way back in the day, Dan, my co-founder, and I actually used live streaming events as our main marketing technique, our main mechanism for growth. When we first started, we were just live streaming out to YouTube. We only had about 4 or 5 people watching us live. But by showing up live and creating those events live with them, we were able to build that trust and build our brand over time. And over the course of week over week going live and essentially just doing Q&A sessions and listening to how they felt about our product, what they wanted us to change and how we can improve it, we really built a strong community and were able to build up the word of mouth motion behind our community. And we've gotten more and more sophisticated over time after 145 episodes. So we're now actually doing virtual events as well, and pieces of those events use live streaming technology, and some of them are just the virtual events themselves. But I think this is a really compelling example of how it doesn't have to be like Dan and I. We didn't have any funds, we didn't have a budget to do anything complicated, but we're able to create that really grassroots motion of our audience and get more and more sophisticated over time. And I think it's something you should really consider for your events, whether it's an event that is just online, like it's just a live streaming event, or you're doing something in person, layering that on to the events you're doing and sort of using it as a loop to improve the event itself. Because some people will only ever want to participate with your events online, but as they see more and more of your content, become more and more connected with you as a brand, maybe they'll actually join you to the in-person component as well. There's a lot of synergy between the online and in-person components. And that brings me to the next thing I want to touch on is how you leverage live streaming technology for an event is going to be very different depending on whether your event is just a virtual event or it's something that you're actually doing in person. If you're going to be leveraging live streaming for an in-person event, essentially it means it's going to be a hybrid event, which I highly suggest. If you're going to make the investment in bringing in all these awesome speakers to an event, getting your community together in person to foster those connections, there's almost no reason for you to not make that small additional investment to take the best pieces of it and actually stream that out live and be able to reach additional folks and make your event much more accessible for people that wouldn't be able to fly in or see that event, making sure that they actually have an option to engage with that content as well. But the types of tools you're going to use differ. So virtual can be very, very simple. And that's actually what Streamyard is. A tool like Streamyard is optimized for, is just doing very simple virtual events where you essentially, it's like Zoom. Zoom would be another example of something you could use to do a simple virtual event, to just bring people in and go live to social media. There's also the more sophisticated event platforms as well, if you want to have different stages and sponsors and things like that. But when it comes to live streaming technology for virtual, it's pretty simple. It's going to be some combination of Zoom or vMix or those types of things to go live. In person, you have to start taking quite a few more considerations. Again, you should always start simple, but in order to capture, for example, different camera angles and different speakers talking, you're going to have a more sophisticated setup, and you might want to consider even investing in an agency or something like that to make sure you get everything right when it comes to an in-person live stream. Another thing I wanted to quickly touch on is the importance of connection quality, because no matter what, you're definitely not going to have an engaging event if things go wrong when it comes to connection quality. And it's something that you really should prioritize. The best advice I can give when it comes to it is to just test and make sure that you're very well prepared before the event actually goes live. The last thing you want to do is think that you've tested everything, but you didn't make some final check and your stream is lagging and people are cutting out. It's essentially going to ruin the entire event. So you really want to make sure that you talk to, like, say it's an in-person event, that you talk to the venue and you talk to the venue, make sure that you're going to have the bandwidth requirements that you need. Or if it's virtual, I mean, you have a much more control over that. You're most likely going to be at home, so make sure you're hardwired. But again, this is a very, very important piece. Nothing else is going to work if you don't prioritize connection quality. And the same is true for your guests. That's actually something that happened recently with Streamyard. Is even though it was somewhat expensive, we had one great guest that we had joining from Brazil that didn't have access to a good internet connection from his home. So we made the investment to actually rent out a hotel room that we knew had high quality internet to get him to do his presentation from there. So you should go above and beyond to make sure that this step is met, because it's just absolutely so essential to having a high quality event. Another thing I wanted to quickly touch on is an eCDN. Now, this definitely won't apply to everyone, but it's something that if it does apply, you'll definitely want to make sure you're aware of it beforehand, or else your event can go actually pretty sideways. So a CDN just stands for Content Delivery Network, and CDN without the E is what most people might be familiar with. So if you're doing an event to the public internet, a CDN is just something that helps you distribute that content at scale and make sure everyone can consume it. But it's not something you'll generally have to think about if you're just doing a simple virtual event. Where eCDNs do start coming into play and might be relevant is if you're doing a hybrid event where you have people coming together in person, you're hosting that event online, and you have people consuming that who are actually participating or who are actually attending the event in person. An ECDN is essentially a CDN for a local network. So if you have a bunch of people attending your event in person and they're trying to watch, say, online components of it from the venue itself, your network can come to a grinding halt if tons and tons of people are trying to access that content at the same time. So if you know that might be a factor for an event, you're definitely going to want to look into an ECDN, which essentially allows, we'll go into the details, but essentially allows people in the local network to sort of help facilitate those connections so that things won't break down. Pure 5 is an example of one of these. And if you think that's going to be a factor, you'll definitely want to look into that. Another thing I wanted to chat about is considerations for virtual guests. Virtual guests are a great way to make your event more engaging. It's one of the main reasons that people do events, but there's all kinds of things that you want to take into account. One is to just make sure that your guest is very well prepared. I find that most people underestimate the amount of instructions that you should give a guest. It's very difficult to go too far. It's very, very easy to not go far enough. So you want to do a lot of prep. Every single guest that you're going to bring into your event, walk them through the exact steps that they're going to need to know about when they're going to talk. There's already a lot of stress involved when they're actually doing the presentation. So you want to make sure that they're prepared for anything that could happen during the event, even having instructions for things that like, hey, if you get disconnected, go here and do this is really, really important so that people feel comfortable and that you're setting yourself up for a successful event. And like we talked about before, connection quality is a huge piece here. So part of that preparation process should include you or whoever or the team you're working with, bringing that guest into whatever tool you're using, making sure their microphone is relatively high quality, it works, making sure they have decent lighting, their camera works, and of course that their internet connection is of good quality. These are things you'll really want to make sure that you do before your event, or things can go off the rails, and that's the last thing you want to happen, right? That's one thing that's important to note is, although the ROI is super, super high by layering on that live streaming piece to your event, you can reach so many more people. You are taking a brand risk by doing it. So you want to take as many steps as possible to mitigate that risk. Because if you make this huge investment, you buy all these cameras, you buy these encoders, you buy these switchers to produce this live stream, and then things go sideways, it's actually a net negative. You've wasted all this effort, and it actually looks bad as a brand. And instead of building that trust, you've eroded it a bit. And people are thinking like, hey, these people can't really put on an event. So it's really important to make sure that you're super well prepared. That's actually something, I won't name the name of this event, but there was one event where the online component was actually something people had paid for, but they hadn't done the necessary prep when it came to, it was mostly internet in this particular case, but the internet of the venue was actually so bad that they weren't able to stream any pieces of the event, and they had to return everybody's money that had signed up for the on-demand portion. So super important to be well prepared. Other one I wanted to quickly chat about was cameras and microphones. So again, this is going to vary, like what makes sense here is going to vary a ton based on what types of events you're streaming and how many, and the types of resources that you have available to you. So if you're doing the simplest form of an event, which I would consider essentially just live streaming to LinkedIn or social media, you'll want to keep it simple. Any sort of external microphone that is not the microphone built into your computer is going to be a massive improvement, and is also the most important piece. People will put up with a video connection that is not amazing, like if it's a little blurry or it's not super high def, but it sounds great, they're going to stay tuning in because they're still able to gather most of the content. But I assure you, and I've seen it, if there's any sort of hiccup when it comes to the microphone itself and it's difficult to hear, people are not going to put up with that, and they're just going to leave. So microphone should be the first investment you make, to get off the internal microphone that you have on your computer and get something external that sounds good. For cameras, it's a similar story when it comes to the simple events. Anything that isn't your built-in laptop camera is going to be a huge improvement. Any external web camera is going to look quite good, especially when it comes to these simple events. And if it's just you, if you're a solo operation, I wouldn't recommend making the investment in a super expensive DSLR camera or something like that to use as your camera, because most of these live streaming platforms only host videos in 720p. Tons of people are just watching from their mobile devices. The amount of benefit you get from having a 4K stream versus 720, specifically when it comes to the simple live streaming events, is not too significant. If you are getting more sophisticated and you have a team that you're working with and you're doing something like an in-person event, you might want to start making more investments when it comes to things like microphones. Obviously, for an in-person event, you might have people, like multiple people on stage speaking in a panel discussion or something like that. And this is where things start to get more complicated. So you will likely want to invest in a team or an agency that is familiar with these types of things, get people hooked up with the lavalier mics, have things going into an audio mixer. If you do want multiple camera angles, making the investment in a switcher to bring those different feeds in. But again, I wouldn't, if it's just you, if you're just a solo operation, the best advice I can give is to just keep things super, super simple, because content's the most important part, and just making sure that things go smoothly. But if you can make the investment, that's where you'll want to start considering things like switchers and different camera angles. Oh, skipped one there. One thing I wanted to give was some engagement tips. So one thing that's important, especially if the event itself is sort of a live streaming first type event, engagement is going to feel pretty natural because there's only one audience, and that is the online audience. So one of the natural things is going to be engaging with them over Q&A and talking with them and incorporating them into the live stream itself. But if you're doing an in-person event, this can be a harder one to pull off, because the focus might be on the in-person event itself. And you want to make sure that if you're streaming portions of it out, that those watching and attending online don't feel sort of like second-class citizens. You'll want to make it where the online experience feels meaningful and unique, and have it where it's not just essentially, view only with no different type of interaction. You'll want to have a host. You'll want to have sections where you're communicating with the audience in between different streams, so that it feels like there's a reason to show up live. If there's no reason to show up live, and they don't feel like they can be incorporated and sort of affect the content itself, no one's really going to want to show up to the live portion of the event. It doesn't mean the on-demand stuff won't be super useful, but there might not be a great reason to live stream it if you're not going to bring in the audience and turn it into an engaging type of live stream. Next one I wanted to quickly chat about was branding. If you're going to go through the effort and trouble of streaming out your event live, you'll want to make sure that it feels like it's your voice and it's coming from you. And very simple things can go a long way, like Event Tech Live is doing here with just your logo in the corner, making sure that the background is unique, that your fonts are represented. If it just feels like there's nothing that says it's coming from the company itself, you lose a lot of that benefit of the scaling meaningful connections and people starting to form that connection with your brand and feeling like this is coming from you. So definitely something you'll want to consider when you're doing your live events. Next one I wanted to chat about was building pre-event hype. This is actually super tied to engagement, because it's very difficult to make an engaging stream if you haven't built up the hype for your event beforehand and don't have anyone watching live. If no one's watching your event live, it's pretty much impossible for it to be engaging. So you'll want to do all the necessary work beforehand to get people excited and coming to the event with questions and wanting to engage with it in the first place. So how you actually build up this pre-event hype is going to depend a lot on the existing channels you have available to you. So if you're a company that has an email list, you'll probably want to come up with some kind of email campaign to talk about, why this is unique content that they'll want to show up for, get them excited. Another thing you can consider is using something like Slido or tools like that, so that they can actually start participating before the event even happens. You can set up something where they can actually submit questions or even videos before the event starts to actually engage. If they can't engage at the time that it's actually live, they can engage beforehand, and you can incorporate that into the stream itself, and it will really make the event feel like it's happening with the audience. They're being incorporated into it. So pre-event is super important. So again, email might be a channel for you. If you don't have an email list, maybe social media is the main channel for you. Maybe you'll actually go through the investment of running advertisements on Facebook ads or Google ads. It's going to be entirely dependent on the type of people you're trying to reach in the marketing channels you have available to you. But again, if you're going to make the investment in doing an event and adding live streaming into it, definitely leverage everything you can to make sure that people are excited for it and as many people show up to it as possible or else it's just going to be pretty hard to make it as engaging as it could be. Another thing I wanted to quickly chat about was the value of keeping the conversation going post event. Again, this comes back to the investment piece. You've put in all this effort to create this great content. You've got speakers coming in from all over the world. You have all this unique content that you've created. It's a real shame how many people go through that trouble and then don't really do anything with that content afterwards. The event's kind of the event, and then it's done. But there's a ton of value in having an editing team, or if you don't have those resources, just you finding the best pieces of that content that you've created, packaging them up in different ways, and then going out with it to your community, again, on those same channels that you have access to. It might be your email list, it might be social media, but again, linking that back to the content that you've created, and hopefully getting those people that maybe didn't attend that event or attend that live stream to show up next time, because they see the pieces of it that were so valuable and that were great pieces of that content. Let's see. And again, so one final thing, no matter how, even if you do everything correctly, no hiccups, you have no hiccups, you have an ECDN, anything that could go wrong you've planned for, none of that really matters if the content is poor. So definitely make the investment up front to make sure that whatever type of live stream or event you're doing is relevant to your overall content strategy. Because if people are if you don't have to have super high production value, like keep things super simple, as long as you have great content that people want to show up for, that's a huge part of the engagement as well. People don't want to engage with things that aren't relevant and interesting to them. So make that investment up front to understand your audience, understand what's going to be most valuable to them, and deliver awesome content, because awesome content is way more important than any sort of production thing, as long as you can actually successfully get the event out. Okay, I think we actually have, so I think this was the last slide. I think we have time for questions at the end. I appreciate you guys attending the talk here. Happy to chat about anything you'd like to ask.
Cheers, Gage. Really, really good stuff there. If you have got any questions, now is the time to get them in the chat box. And we've got a few people just joining us. We've got Louise. We've got definitely Zepsan. She is back. Definitely agreeing with you. Content. Gage, really good talk there. I've been taking notes as you've gone through. I like the way you just took us back to, the preparation, the basics for people, because we're living in the virtual world, or completely virtual, for the last 18 months, especially here in the UK, where we've been pretty much locked down, and just still seeing people with poor lighting, terrible sounding microphones, and the stuff is cheap. The tech that you mentioned, getting any external microphone, like you say, will be such a big improvement. So it's good to just sort of see you doing that. In terms of making those initial investments, I know you sort of said unless you're doing the huge ones, you don't want to go big. Is that where you go first? Just get that mic sorted as a recommendation?
If you're just doing a simple live stream event, the very first investment I would make would 100% be to the external microphone. It makes a huge difference. Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic, and that's it. I totally agree with everything you said regarding the. If you get that prep right, you're finished with content is king. We're all agreeing with that. You've got to have the right content in there. But you say if you miss out any of those steps along that journey, it's just not going to come across. You're not going to get that message across. You're not going to get the return. Just in terms of moving forward, I know your live streaming platform, it's built up. Are you seeing that going more, the Streamyard, into the sort of commercial corporate arena? I know it was very popular, in the gaming sort of arenas. Is that becoming a lot more widespread?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we actually were always targeted towards not game. It was sort of everyone outside of gamers. It was people that weren't really particularly tech savvy. It was sort of our core audience, but it was mostly early on the smaller types of creators that didn't have the resources to make a huge investment in learning the complicated technologies out there. But what we've learned is when it comes to corporations, businesses, essentially everybody is a content creator in some way, whether it's the internal all hands that you're doing or you're giving a presentation to your engineering team. Everybody needs to create content and engage with these tools. And we're seeing more and more folks start using StreamYard for those types of use cases. Like, hey, I want to interview the CMO of my company and ask her best advice on these particular tips and have a simple way to capture that, because she's not going to want to have to engage with well, maybe she does, but most folks in the corporate environment just want a simple solution to capture that. So yeah, absolutely, we're starting to see more and more corporations use StreamYard, not just for live streaming, but just for capturing content in general.
Fantastic. And just you touched on that you've got to have that engagement, the live Q&A as things are coming in. I've seen things online, people streaming various things, and it's quite interesting when they are trying to deliver a bit of a presentation, the messages, and they never quite deliver it because they're constantly sort of distracted by almost that live interaction. I find watching some videos where they're building up to a point, and they go and they finally get there and they go, and the key point is that I really want you to take away, oh hi Dragon Slayer 59186, and it's like, oh, just tell me, give me that information. Is there a way just from people actually using that sort of these facilities for actually delivering that messages? Would you sort of recommend they have someone almost moderating that chat, or ways of sort of structuring their talks that you sort of deliver a bit of information and then go to it rather than just try not to be distracted? Or do you find sort of people find their own balance of trying to keep an eye on that and trying to deliver it? What are your thoughts on that?
No, it's a great point. So I think it totally depends on the type of show you're doing. So if you've defined your show as a Q&A, obviously that's the point of the show. So you're going to be taking those questions live, doing it live. It's not really a distraction because that's the content itself. But 100% agree that if that's not the purpose of your show, if you have a content plan and you're trying to deliver a message, I would recommend not taking comments throughout the show at all. How you guys have done it with Event Tech Live is actually perfect, to essentially have someone in the background curating those comments, and at the end of the talk, taking the time to engage and answer them. Then one thing some people have done that I've seen that I think is successful is popping up some of those comments on screen, or showing like, hey, this is what someone said on Twitter about this particular subject, but I wouldn't actually engage with it in the middle of the talk and interrupt it. I would save it for the end or the beginning. That's another thing I've seen too with podcasts that works really well to build that community feel, is have the distractions before you actually start recording the content, to just like engage with your community, talk with them, and have that live interaction. Get to the content. The content's the content. Make sure it's clean, it's crisp, and you get it done, and then engage with them after about how they felt about it and how it went. But yeah, I 100% agree. You don't want to be stopping in the middle of your stream if that's not the purpose of the stream.
Brilliant. I'll say, because it's just a personal thing. I've watched something and it's taken 17 minutes for someone to finish a sentence just because of those constant distractions. So no, I really appreciate that. We have got a few comments coming in. We have got Zef-san, if you haven't tried StreamYard yet, well, put it on your holiday shopping list. She's loving a bit of StreamYard. Louise, I love a bit of chat with the audience. And also Zef-san saying, also it depends on your personal style too. I'm sure it does. And I say, Zef-san, if you missed it earlier, Gage has a very unique personal style. But Zef-san, Gage, thank you very much for joining us. I say it's really valuable to our audience. And I say there's a lot more, obviously, emphasis on streaming things out. So I say it's a really, really key subject. And thank you for your time for joining us. If people want to connect with you, Gage, what is the best thing to do other than connecting with you on the platform today?
Connecting with me, if someone wants to connect with me personally, Twitter is probably the easiest way. It's kind of the only real social platform I'm on. Just Gage, my name, Gage V is my Twitter handle if you want to reach out to me. And then, of course, just streamyard.com if you're interested in tools in general. That would be the place.
Brilliant stuff. Well, as I say, thank you very much for delivering that. So really, really insightful and great to learn a little bit more, and say some great tips in there for our audience. So thank you very much for being part of Event Tech Live 21.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure being here. Appreciate it.
Absolutely great to have you. So, ladies and gents, hope you enjoyed that. As I say, if you do have any more questions, you can find him on Twitter. That is where the man hangs out. But, ladies and gents, we only have now one final presentation left of Event Tech Live 2021. They say time flies when you're having fun. Well, we're at the end of the week already. So in 15 minutes time, we've got what can we learn from the gaming, esports and porn industries. If you want to know what the answers to that question is, you need to tune in 15 minutes time. We've got more people joining us. Hi, Abby. Welcome to the stream. I say 15 minutes, that will be our final session of the week and the final session of Event Tech Live 2021, but well worth hanging on for. We're just going to have a quick look back now over the next 15 minutes of some of the things you've missed, some of our highlights, and the amazing things that have gone on over the past 5 days.